Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, the Wahl controversy expands. Also, lawmakers choose bans over business. And the legislature stumbles to the finish line and blunders.
Ah, you fool! You fell victim to one of the classic blunders. The most famous is never get involved in a land war in Asia.
Talk about one of the great blunders. 2025. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter at APR. Welcome.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Well, thank God, Greyhound, the session is over, but we'll get to that blunder later. First off, and Josh, you've reported on this, and I've reported on it. And this past week, Kyle Whitmire over at AL.com reported about John Wahl and his many, many faces of John Wahl. And what Kyle Whitmire was finally able to prove is that there is no John Wahl, as we've been saying all along. That is a fictitious name. It's an alias. His real name is Nehemiah Ezekiel Wahl. Mm-hmm. And how Kyle Whitmire found this is he found a ticket that Mr. Wahl had gotten in 2023 and was able to see on the ticket that his driver's license listed his name as Nehemiah Ezekiel Wahl, a resident of Tennessee. Now, Josh, what do you have? Tuberville is going to run from Florida, and looks like Wahl has some Tennessee there, and you got some thinking on that, don't you?
Oh, yeah. We're in the very unique position of having a Tennessee man certify a Florida man to run for Alabama's governor. That's fantastic.
Only in Alabama.
Only in Alabama, baby. Man, I have been around Alabama politics now for longer than I should have been.
Yeah.
Okay. Longer than I should be saying. But I have never seen anything as weird as this.
Yeah.
All right. And I was very careful to point out in a column that I wrote, I'm not talking about John Wahl, the person.
No.
Or Ezekiel, Nehemiah Ezekiel Wahl, the person. I'm not, whatever his religious beliefs, whatever he believes, whatever thing he has going on, I'm not making a judgment on that. Okay. But the overall spectacle of this, it's so weird. It's so confusing. I'll be quite honest. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what the motivation is here for some of this stuff. There has been I've heard some wild speculation about, CIA. And honestly, and I don't think any of that stuff is true, but it's just, it leads to that sort of thinking because it is so utterly strange. Nothing is linear here. Nothing lines up. You can't say, well, he did this because of this and because of that. And the other thing is I can't even tell if there's any fraud or any way that he's trying to get money out of this, like you would normally expect from an Alabama politician. I don't know what's happening.
And again, we're not accusing him of doing anything wrong with his name.
No.
Other than he signed legal documents, John Wahl, unless he can prove that he changed his name legally to John Wahl, he has. If Alabama law has any meaning, in which it doesn't seem it to if you're a Republican, that he signed official documents as John Wahl, not Nehemiah Ezekiel John Wahl.
Yeah, his all of his ethics forms that he has to filled out as John Wahl, signed as John Wahl, I don't know in what world or what universe, even worldwide, that it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
It's not okay to do that. You have to use your legal name. If indeed this is a nickname, then you do like every other person in the world, either put it where it says nickname or put it in quotation marks.
Well, one of the things that I found troubling is that he went on a radio show right after this report came out, and he said, well, a lot of people use their middle name. Well, that's not his middle name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not his middle name. His middle name is Ezekiel.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people do. Yeah. That's a great point, John. A lot of people do that. Yeah. I mean, and that's one, but man, it just, all right. So let me take you back a couple of years. All right. So he used a phony ID to vote.
Yes.
A few years ago. Okay. He used this ID that he and apparently Jim Ziegler cooked up together. And claimed that he was an employee of the auditor's office.
Right.
All right. He was a state employee. And they just created this thing with a third-party printer and everything. And it had on there his name, John Wahl, with his photo.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what he used to vote. So if his name is not actually John Wahl, is that not some level of voter fraud? I'm asking the authorities to take a look at this because, two secretaries of state have also asked, and I think it's a very fine question, especially at this point. But the bigger question to me right now is why the hell did we go through all of this with him if he was out there willing to get a driver's license in another state anyway?
Yeah.
Here's my issue with the whole thing is that nobody of the ALGOP cares.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, no problem. He lives in another state. He's the head of the Alabama Republican Party. That's all right. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, and to further Josh's question here, because if he registered as John Wahl there, it would be possible for him to also register over here as Nehemiah Wahl and vote twice. Not that he would do that, and I'm not accusing him of doing that. I'm just saying that would open up the opportunity. So there has to be a problem with that.
Now, and again, I go back to this is the guy that probably going to have the ultimate saying on whether Tommy Tuberville's residency qualifies him to run for Alabama governor. And I have to wonder what happened to the Republican Party of law and order, where you have the head of the party who doesn't use his legal name, but tried to tell Kyle Whitmire that Whitmire was wrong.
That he'd never heard of it.
He lied to Whitmire. It sounded like to me like, because if you tell me, you ask me a question, I say, oh yeah, my name's Bill Britt, and you say, oh well, I got a license here that says it's not. It's something else. And you go, well, but that kind of thing, how is that tolerated by the Republican Party? And how are we to respect the Republican Party if this is what passes as leadership?
Well, and here's the thing. What Whitmire said, he sent him all the information about Nehemiah, from my understanding of the article. And he said he didn't know anything about that. And then Kyle said, well, I have your driver's license. I have the information off your driver's license.
Yeah.
And he went, oh, well, then, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he got on Jeff Poor's show and said, oh, no, that's my middle name. When it's not. That's two lies right there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that he said that's
the bigger one. Here's the other one. Here's another one.
Insinuated.
Also on Poor's show, he also said to him that he got the license in Tennessee in anticipation of moving there. That's not how that works. You can't get one in anticipation of moving somewhere. You have to actually live there. You have to have an address that you belong to. And as far as I can tell, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he lives at this address or not, or did he live there for a little while? I mean, he's the chairman of the Alabama Republican Party, okay?
It doesn't make any sense. And I think the Republican Party has an obligation to its voters to tell them who is this guy and why is he doing what he's doing. But anyway, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Your home is your most valuable asset. But what if someone tried to steal it from you? Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
As a district attorney, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of property fraud. That's why I'm proud to support the Montgomery County Probate Court's REACT program.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
So don't wait. Sign up for REACT today and protect your home.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, I know you well remember in 2010 when the Republican Party ran to take control of the House and the Senate and the legislature. They ran as a business-friendly party. And this is something that we have heard from Republicans year after year. They have proven over the last several years, this is not truly a business-friendly party. This is a party that likes to get money from businesses and then do things that harm businesses. This legislative session, they chose to hurt business on several fronts. One was the HB 8, the vape bill, which made it illegal for that product, the nicotine dispenser, to be sold at convenience stores. Now, there are 4,500 plus convenience stores that rely on that income to keep employees and their businesses going. But go ahead, Rat.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They were pro-business coming in. 15 years later, this is not what this group is.
Yeah.
This is like anti-business.
Yeah.
You know, they passed laws, you know, like the abortion bans and all of that, not to attract businesses to Alabama because that's going to keep businesses out. Then they passed laws like HB 8, HB 445, which is the hemp bill, that's going to. The HB 8 is going to hurt the convenience stores, no doubt. All right, HB 445 is going to shut businesses down that have been operating illegally legally for years. And the bill is so confusing that they put it together so fast to get the headlines.
Yeah.
Understand, this is not about helping people. This is not about child welfare. This is not about rural hospitals. This is not about stuff they actually have to work at. It's just something they just scramble together so they can get a headline for the next election. Meanwhile, they're putting people out of business.
Yeah.
You know, they don't care. But in there's one product that if you sell it over here, it's totally legal. About 10 pages later, every time you sell it, it's $1,000 to $10,000 fine.
Yeah.
Same product.
I mean, Josh, the thing is, and these are small businesses, but they've done the same thing to big businesses too, where they take their money, then give them the Bronx cheer when it comes time to vote. But this thing here, the Petroleum Convenience Store and Petroleum Association represents 60,000 plus employees, and they just hit those convenience stores with one of the biggest things that they could. Do they not think they're involved in economic development? Because if you're going to move a tractor or a road grader or anything, you got to have diesel fuel. Where do you get your diesel fuel?
Yeah.
At the convenience store, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I tell you right now, the biggest problem you can have is they ain't got no gas in it.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's listen, I've been saying this for several years now. Okay, and I mean it. I mean it when I say it. I'm not some shill for the Democratic Party of Alabama here because I know the problems that they've had. But the Democrats in the legislature have presented far more business-friendly, smart, conscientious bills and pieces of legislation to help small businesses, to help workers at the same time. They have proven that you can do both, that you can help workers and you can help small businesses and large businesses along the way with smart legislation that helps all of us. All right. And this is not that. This is a killer for a lot of people. And it makes no sense. what they're doing is regulating something that they do not understand, and they've never understood it. They've talked about the dangers of this thing. They went out looking for somebody that is harmed, and they found one kid that got sick for a little while. And now I don't want anybody to be sick, but my God, man, what are we doing here?
Well, they act like this was the scourge, and this was what was happening, that children were being harmed. And let's face it, and if any of you are watching, I hope you are, you couldn't get cigarettes when you were a kid. You couldn't get a beer when you were a kid. Of course
you just weren't very smart.
Then you were a dumb kid.
Wait a minute. You can't get beer now? You can't get cigarettes now?
Of course you can.
Come on, man.
Of course you can.
Yes. I mean, you're going to give us this self-righteous nonsense while you're in the business of selling the deadliest product on the shelves, which is alcohol?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, come on, dude.
How many people have died of secondhand drinking? A lot.
A whole lot. A whole lot.
But the thing is, these vape stores that they penalize, and because the 90% of their product is the smokable product.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to veterans, I've talked to school teachers, I've talked to normal people who said, you take away my vape hemp, and I'm going to be going back to the back alleys. I'm going to have to take pills that do me no good because they're harmful, more harmful than the vape.
A lot of people use this instead of using opioids. Remember when we had the opioid crisis?
Yeah.
Do we have that big of an opioid crisis anymore? No, because they're using the hemp-based products. Josh, what are they thinking?
They're not thinking. They didn't think, and they came up with a rush bill, and it was punitive because they don't want you smoking it. Come on, man. They're going to get the dope whether they get it legally or illegally.
And this is going to throw it back into the back alleys again of getting it illegally, which is probably going to be laced with fentanyl.
Yeah, well,
and y'all keep yelling about trying to control fentanyl.
Hey, real quick, we only got about a minute and a half. The Alabama Always has now sued the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission in federal court, Josh.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was bound to happen, right? I mean, it's they've been searching for a legal avenue to kind of hold these people accountable because honestly, this kind of ties back into the previous one that we were just talking about, where they have people turning to these hemp products because they can't get the medical marijuana that they would otherwise be qualified for because of their ailments. And this is, I mean, you got a state agency that can't get the thing passed, that refuses to follow the law, and somebody has got to finally hold them accountable and force them to do the right thing.
Well, the thing is, and I said this last show, the thing they didn't do was try to get something going with this. They totally ignored the problems with the Cannabis Commission. Meanwhile, over here, making it illegal. They don't fit.
No.
They don't fit.
And
do something. Go to work, people.
And
don't just start throwing bills out because you feel like it.
And when people tell me that these lawmakers are using common sense, I got to say, I got a donkey that has more common sense than what I've seen with these two bills. We're going to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. And we are critical, and that is part of our job is to be critical. We are not stenographers. We are not your cheerleaders. We are the fourth estate, and we will judge based on logic, common sense, and what is good for the people. When I look at a bill, I'm not interested in how good it is for you or how good it is for your buddy. I want to know how good is it for the working people of Alabama, not the billionaires, not the millionaires. How does it work for the people of Alabama? And Josh, Susan, this bill that they let retire, they let expire, was one of the most egregious, atrocious acts I have ever seen a legislature do. The overtime tax, that was no tax on overtime, was so successful that President Donald Trump now wants to make it a national model right as Alabama dropped it because they said it was costing too much money. It didn't cost any money. It's made up.
The taxpayers saved $320 million. But they're saying that, oh, well, that cost us $320. No, it didn't cost you $320 million, because if it hadn't been law, they wouldn't have worked the overtime. So it wouldn't have existed to begin with. I mean, saying this is just totally illogical, which is what they're famous for. If the overtime tax wasn't, the non-tax wasn't available, overtime would not have gotten worked. So therefore, your logic is way off base.
I mean, Josh, even the Alabama Policy Institute came out and said this was ridiculous. And we ran an editorial by Stephanie over there, the head of
Stephanie Smith.
Stephanie Smith, the head of API. Very well written, very well done. And look, they raised the ETF, budget by $500 million, but they couldn't let working people keep their money, right?
Well, listen, in the same publication of APR on Thursday, you had opinion pieces from me and Stephanie Smith agreeing on this.
Yes.
All right, so that ought to tell you where this thing is. Okay, right? And so, I mean, probably something exploded in space somewhere. But this is how you end up with a fake person in charge of your party.
Yeah.
Okay, is your logic doesn't make any sense on this sort of thing. Okay. All right, what they actually lost, this is what they actually lost, the ETF, is about $25 million.
Right.
It's a drop in the bucket to this $1 billion budget that they've got over there, okay? Because $25 million or $30 million was the projection, and that was a tick up from where the receipts for overtime taxes had come in the years previously, okay? That's what they were basing this on. So the fact that we had $320 million, that meant that a lot of businesses out there said, hey, we need some extra. And a lot of workers said, hey, you're going to give me a 5% raise. I'll take advantage of that, man, and go in and work a few extra hours. And I wish people would start saying what this actually is. What they did was they didn't let a bill lapse. They taxed working people in this state 5%.
Yeah.
They raised your taxes by 5% the other day. That's what happened.
And speaking of percentages, this is only 3% of the overall ETF.
Yeah.
6% of the K through 12 budget. We're talking about minor parts of the giant ETF.
Yeah.
But you know why they did it. You know why they did it.
Educate me.
They did it because they know in 2 years, that stupid Choose Act that they pushed through that's going to funnel money out of the ETF and over to private schools, away from our public schools and over to private businesses that aren't regulated the same, and take money out of your kids' classrooms. They've already got some schools out here who've canceled bus orders and other stuff in anticipation of this stuff, because we're already paying out $180 million now. And soon they're going to remove the cap. And we're looking at upwards of $500 million to $750 million coming out of that budget every year for our public schools. Now, you tell me where you can find that in your public school.
Yeah. And you know what? It is not going to people who choose to go, that are now choosing to go to private schools.
Nope.
It is the people that are already in private schools. Very few of those people were not already in private schools. So it is a handout to the rich, as we've said before, and a way to get public dollars into more private hands. It's taxpayer money. But listen, it's just, and what did they do? They gave scraps off the table to working moms, to pregnant moms, to children. They literally gave them the stuff you would throw on the floor for the dog to eat. Now, the dog is happy to get it. And I'm sure these beautiful mothers and children and all that are happy to get cheaper Huggies and cheaper bottles and all that stuff. I'm happy for that. But it was scraps from the tables.
Oh, and it only lasts till 2028.
Yeah.
They put a little end date on that one, just like they did the overtime tax. So don't get too excited, because by the time we get to 2008, they'll have figured out how much money it's costing them, and they just won't be able to continue it anymore.
You know, by then some of them will need their own Huggies.
Oh,
but
definitely.
Josh, you
and
know,
guess what? That was included in the bill, so they'll have to pay the 4%
well,
tax.
they did put in the adult diaper changing things in the bill. I don't know how much that's going to cost, but probably a good idea for some. But Josh, I mean, just the sheer hypocrisy of saying we're giving these tax cuts 1% more on groceries while they took away 5% tax. You know, they basically retaxed them 5%.
I mean, listen, you know, look, I wrote this the other day. If you don't, this is some of the most unpopular legislation as a collection that I've ever seen come out of the legislature. All right, it really is. This session was atrocious for the average Alabamian.
Yeah.
And so it's up to the average Alabamian to do something about it. You know, get tired of this. I mean, the business community, if you're tired of this stuff, start funding some candidates to run against some of these people that put this stuff up, that do these sorts of things. Listen, I got to tell you, there are a number of Republicans out there, serious lawmakers, who want very much to do something different out of this. They stick together. And listen, I'm not excusing them. You know, I think it's a coward's way out that they haven't taken a stand on a lot of this stuff. But we've gerrymandered this thing, and we've suppressed the vote to the point where just a handful of people now in these districts, and I think we had 1,000 or so, you know, just vote for in a Republican primary over here the other day. And, you know, that sort of thing is the reason why we have these problems, is you're relying on the rabid base of these folks to do these things. And you've got to start getting the turnout out there, and you've got to start fielding better candidates. I
got to put in one more point. The one thing that you didn't see with HB 8, you did not see with HB 445, is how much tax revenue is going to be lost for not providing ability to. How much tax revenue is now going to go out of state to get the products that these people need.
You know,
didn't see any numbers on that, boys.
They had to have that moral victory, because God forbid, we've got to protect the children. Anyway, you've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.